Billionaire Confronts, black driver, mid-dance with his paralyzed daughter, a stunning turn of events. Take your hands off my daughter right now. Michael Sterling's voice thundered through the marble foyer, ricocheting off the high ceilings like a gavel's knock in an empty courtroom. He stood at the threshold of the living room, luxury sneakers planted firmly on the Persian rug, staring down at the sight that had sent his blood boiling. Jordan Hayes, his newly hired driver, spinning his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, in a gentle dance, her wheelchair gliding across the polished floor as Brazilian bossa nova drifted from Jordan's phone. Lily's laughter, bright and pure, shattered the heaviness of 6 months of silence since her spinal injury. But Michael's pride and fear fused into outrage. A billionaire's protective instinct turned to prejudice in an instant, and he lunged forward as if to seize Jordan by the collar. Jordan froze mid-twirl, carefully releasing Lily's hand so her chair came to an unceremonious stop. Lily's smile flickered and dyed confusion mingling with hurt in her wide green eyes. Jordan raised his hands slowly, palms outward, voice calm yet firm. "Sir Sterling, please let me explain." A servant hovered at the archway, uncertain whether to intercede. On the far couch, Carla Novak, the family's longtime assistant and a vocal blogger for disability rights, watched with silent alarm, her fingers tightening around her phone. In that instant, the air crackled with unspoken tension, the collision of wealth and vulnerability, power and prejudice. Michael jabbed a finger at Jordan's phone, its screen still pulsing with music. "You're a chauffeur," he spat, voice brittle. "Not a circus performer. Turn that thing off." Lily's shoulders slumped. As Jordan paused the song, the living room swallowed by suffocating quiet. Michael crouched beside his daughter, voice softening but laced with steel. "Lily, you need to accept your limitations." Lily's lip quivered. "But Daddy, Jordan just taught me to dance like the other kids. You said no one could make me forget the chair." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Michael's chest tightened, a cage of regret clamping around his heart. Jordan stood motionless, the epitome of restraint. His crisp navy uniform belied the depths of his secret, a PhD in pediatric neuroscience, a pioneer in music movement therapy for children with neurological trauma talents that a chauffeur's job description could never convey. Yet the phoenix wing butterfly pin Elena Sterling had given Lily at birth gleamed on his lapel, a silent emblem of transformation, of Lily's potential to soar in her own way. In Jordan's steady gaze, Michael glimpsed a truth he'd refused to see, that dignity and healing are not bound by social rank or job titles. "Mr. Sterling," Jordan finally said, voice low but resonant, "your daughter deserved more than pity and pity-driven therapy. She needed someone to believe she could fly, even if differently." The hush was absolute. Carla's phone screen lit up with the live feed she'd discreetly activated, ready to capture every second for her followers. Michael's jaw clenched as the magnitude of his misstep hit him. He'd humiliated the only person who'd sparked Lily's first genuine joy since the accident. As Jordan turned to leave, Lily whispered through tears, "Don't go, Jordan." Michael froze, the echo of her plea igniting a conflict between his pride and his love. The next move would define not just Lily's future, but the moral compass of a man who controlled fortunes, yet nearly lost his daughter's heart. "You think you know what's best for my daughter," Michael snarled, as Jordan's polished shoes slipped through the front door, the butterfly pin on his lapel catching the last ray of afternoon sun like a silent accusation. The door clicked shut, and suddenly, the Sterling mansion felt unnaturally vast, its marble halls echoing Lily's broken sobs from the living room. Michael stood rooted to the spot chest, tight with a storm of guilt and dread. He realized too late that he had dismissed more than a driver. He'd driven away the only person who had given Lily a spark of joy. Inside, Lily curled into a ball in her wheelchair, the edges of her favorite blue blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. Carla Novak knelt beside her, her own face streaked with tears, as she tried to soothe the child. "It's going to be okay, sweet pea," Carla murmured, glancing up at Michael. He averted his eyes, unable to meet the assistant's pleading stare. Every syllable of Carla's empathy felt like a blow-proof that he'd acted out of fear, not fatherly concern. That night, Michael paced his study, the city lights of Miami glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. He called every specialist he'd previously dismissed, physical therapists, counselors, even robotics engineers who designed exoskeletons. But each arranged session ended with Lily refusing to participate. She lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as though the mansion's grandeur had become her prison. Michael's empire of code and commerce had prepared him to conquer markets. It had not prepared him for the fragility of his daughter's heart. In the corner, his phone buzzed with notifications from Carla's blog, where she'd documented Jordan's kindness and Michael's harsh reaction. Comments poured in. A real act of heroism, shame on him, where is justice for disabled children? The digital tide of public opinion began to erode Michael's confidence. He slammed his laptop shut, hearing the finality in its click. Could he reclaim what he'd lost? Meanwhile, across town, Jordan Hayes sat at his small apartment table, the glow of his laptop illuminating a wall lined with diplomas, degrees in neuroscience, certificates in music movement therapy, a framed letter from Paris's leading pediatric hospital. He typed a discreet message requesting Lily's medical records, then printed a fresh set of notes to refine her treatment plan. There was no panic in his movements, only purpose. On his desk lay a small leather folder stamped with the initials LS, and beneath it, a yellowed letter in French sealed with a butterfly emblem, the one Elena Sterling had sent him 6 months ago, charging him with a sacred promise. Back in the mansion, morning light found Michael kneeling beside Lily's bed, the silence between them heavy with unspoken regret. He reached for her hand once, electric, with Jordan's confident warmth, now cold and still. "Lily," he whispered, voice breaking, I'm sorry." A single tear escaped down her cheek. She turned her head to the window where a lone butterfly had landed on the glass, its wings fluttering in fragile triumph. Lily's eyes followed it, and for a moment Michael glimpsed the same hope he'd seen in Jordan's calm gaze. Determined, Michael summoned Carla. "I need everything you have on Jordan Hayes," he said, his tone urgent. "His background, his credentials, even that letter you mentioned." Carla nodded, relief and surprise flickering in her eyes. As she scrolled through her files, Michael felt the weight of his next decision, a private investigation that could either expose the full truth or confirm the prejudice he'd let rule his heart. Outside, the butterfly took flight, vanishing into the dawn. Michael watched the empty window, realizing that Lily's fragile chance at healing hinged on him, letting go of control and embracing a promise he'd almost destroyed. "You really dug this deep into a chauffeur's past," Michael Sterling muttered, eyes scanning the dossier spread across his mahogany desk. He'd sent Carla Novak, his assistant and reluctant blogger-turned-investigator, on a mission to uncover every detail about Jordan Hayes. Now, file after file lay before him, transcripts from the University of São Paulo's medical school, published research on neuroplasticity, in children records of his lectures in Paris, and a certificate from the American Music Therapy Association. Michael's breath hitched. How had he mistaken a world-class pediatric neuroscientist for a mere driver? Each page shredded another layer of his stubborn pride. He'd built his tech empire on algorithms and data, yet here he was blindsided by his own prejudice. The butterfly pin Elena had given Lily, once a charming trinket, glowed in his mind as a living symbol of transformation. He recalled how Jordan's gentle dancing had coaxed a genuine smile from Lily's lips for the first time since her spinal injury. That smile now felt sacred, a beacon he'd nearly extinguished. Meanwhile, across town, in his modest apartment, Jordan Hayes methodically organized his leather-bound folder. Anatomical diagrams annotated with musical cues, personalized movement progressions, color-coded for Lily's condition, and that faded yellowed letter sealed with a butterfly emblem, Elena Sterling's final wish. He traced his finger over her handwriting. "Promise me you'll be there for Lily when she needs you most." Jordan had kept that promise in secret, risking his reputation to slip into a chauffeur's uniform and access the one place that had the world's richest resources, but lacked the one thing Lily craved: belief in her own strength. Back in the mansion, Michael's phone buzzed. A message from Carla: wait until you see the medical evaluation report. And there's more. Jordan Hayes volunteered at children's clinics in 5 countries. He's fluent in 4 languages. Michael closed his eyes, an ache blossoming in his chest. Every call he had rerouted every specialist he had hired and then abandoned. They all paled beside the man he'd thrown out at Lily's simplest request. He rose and paced the marble floors cool beneath his socks. His empire's worth glimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Miami skyline a constellation of success, but none of it compared to the fragile life in the next room, Lily's hope hanging by a thread. Should he beg Jordan to return, offer a job title that matched his credentials, or swallow his ego entirely and admit he was wrong? Michael paused at Lily's door. Through the glass pane, he saw her small frame hunched in her wheelchair, head bowed over a nurse's notes. On the sill lay Jordan's butterfly pin left behind when Carla retrieved the files. The pin caught the noon sun, casting specks of light across Lily's blanket. Michael's throat tightened. He whispered, "I'm sorry," even though she couldn't hear him. He peeled the dossier's cover to the final document, a handwritten note from Elena marked, "For Michael's eyes only." His hand trembled as he lifted it. Inside, her words glowed with love and foresight, a mother's final instruction to bridge the gap between fear and faith. Michael exhaled, a single tear tracing down his cheek. Whatever came next, he knew he could no longer control every outcome. Because in the end, true healing required more than money, it demanded humility. He turned and strode toward the study, determination hardening in his gaze. The next call he would make wasn't to his boardroom or his PR team. It was to Jordan Hayes, the man whose wings he had clipped and whose brilliance he needed to embrace. The question waiting on his lips would define everything. Would Jordan still answer the phone? "I need you to come back," Michael's voice cracked as he stared at the blinking cursor on his phone screen. He'd rehearsed this moment countless times in his head, but nothing prepared him for the vulnerability that flooded his chest now. Calling Jordan Hayes felt like stepping off a cliff, an admission of defeat and hope all at once. The butterfly pin Elena had once given Lily lay heavy in Michael's palm, its tiny wings a reminder that some transformations demand faith over fear. Across town, Jordan Hayes closed his laptop and glanced at the framed photo of Lily, her bright smile caught mid-twirl, wheelchair and all. He'd stayed up late perfecting her treatment plan, a series of carefully timed music cues paired with micro-movements designed to rewire neural pathways. Every note, every motion held the promise of progress. But now hearing Michael's plea over the phone would be the ultimate test of his own resolve. Could he trust the man who'd fired him on a whim to truly support Lily's journey? Michael pressed call and held the phone to his earpace, slowing to a crawl in the mansion's silent study. The Miami skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a constellation of deals and dollars that once defined his power. But tonight that power felt hollow. He'd built empires on spreadsheets and code. He'd neglected the one person who needed him most. A soft click signaled the call connecting. Mr. Sterling Jordan answered, voice calm as moonlight on glass. Michael swallowed the lump in his throat. "Jordan, I was wrong. I judged you by your title, not your talent. Lily needs you. Her first real smile in 6 months, it was yours. I can't unring the bell, but I need your help again. Not as a driver." Michael paused, tears prickling as Lily's doctor and her father's reminder of what love looks like. Silence stretched. On the phone, Michael imagined Jordan's steady gaze, the quiet strength that refused to be shaken by fear or prejudice. Would he accept? The butterfly pin warmed in Michael's hand, as though urging him onward. Behind him, the study door creaked, Lily's soft voice, calling half hopeful, half anxious. Daddy Michael's heart skipped. He realized this call wasn't just about rehiring a specialist. It was about reclaiming trust, humility, and a father's promise to never abandon his child's hope again. Finally, Jordan spoke his words, measured yet heartfelt. "Give me 5 minutes. I'll be there." Michael exhaled, relief and apprehension colliding in his chest. As he ended the call, the butterfly pin dropped from his fingers, clattering against the mahogany desk like a starting gun. A new race had begun, one where pride had to take a backseat to possibility, and every flutter of those tiny wings could mean the difference between Lily's despair and her first steps toward flying. "I almost killed my daughter's dream," Michael Sterling whispered into his phone, before hitting end, his words hanging in the silent study like a confession. 5 minutes later, the front door clicked open, and Jordan Hayes stepped inside carrying a black duffel bag and the weight of Lily's fragile hope. The butterfly pin on Jordan's lapel caught the morning light, its wings a silent testament to the transformation ahead. Michael swallowed hard, steeling himself for what came next. Jordan knelt beside Lily's wheelchair, unpacking soft foam rollers, a tablet loaded with personalized music tracks, and a small ornately carved music box etched with a butterfly motif. "This was Elena's Jordan," explained gently, winding the toy so it played a lullaby. "I promised her I'd bring this back to Lily when she needed it most." The melody filled the room, delicate notes weaving a thread of memory between past and present. Lily's eyes widened as she recognized the tune, her tiny fingers reaching out to catch the faint glow of those fluttering wings in the music box's lid. Michael watched, heart pounding. This was the moment his spreadsheets and stock options could never buy, the moment Lily felt seen, believed in. Yet a knot of anxiety tightened in his chest. Today was also the board meeting where he'd pitch a new funding round for his tech startup. Investors were flying in, and any PR glitch could tank the entire valuation. He glanced at his suit jacket draped over a chair, the cufflinks engraved with his company's logo. Could he juggle a boardroom full of skeptics and a therapy session that defied every conventional protocol? Jordan began the session with a simple drill, slow rhythmic finger taps along Lily's arm, synced to the music box. He demonstrated on himself first, each tap precise yet gentle, then encouraged Lily to mimic. At first her movements were tentative, eyes locked on Jordan's hands. Then, as the lullaby swelled, she tapped back in kind, a quiet victory that made Jordan's lips curve with pride. Michael's throat went dry. This was progress no MRI or counselor's report had achieved. But just as Lily managed 3 complete taps, the foyer door burst open as COO, and 2 major investors strode in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and impatience. "Michael, the conference room is ready," his COO said, voice echoing off the marble. Investors in tailored suits paused, eyebrows knitting, as they took in the scene, a billionaire's daughter dancing her fingers to a music box, guided by a man in a chauffeur's uniform. One investor whispered, "Is that part of the new wellness initiative?" Another's lips curled in skepticism. Michael's heart hammered. This was his moment to choose, usher them out, and protect his image, or invite them in and risk their scorn. He swallowed, then stepped forward. "Please," he said, clearing his throat. "You're witnessing our new research into neuro-movement therapy. This is Dr. Hayes. Lily's progress here informs a larger study we're funding, one that could revolutionize rehabilitation for children nationwide." The investors exchanged glances as Jordan continued. Jordan switched tracks on his tablet and guided Lily through micro-movements, tiny shoulder rolls, subtle shifts in weight that challenged her neural pathways. He narrated each cue with scientific precision and compassionate warmth, explaining how music frequencies stimulated dopamine release to rebuild motor control. The investors leaned in as Lily's arms lifted in a smooth, almost dreamlike arc. In that moment, the sterile boardroom charts and market forecasts felt pale beside the living proof before them. A hush fell. Then the lead investor, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes, exhaled slowly. "We'll need to see peer-reviewed data," she said, voice low but intrigued. Michael felt a spark of triumph. He'd bridged the worlds of business and healing without sacrificing either. Yet as the group departed, giving polite nods, Michael noticed Lily's face flicker with fatigue. She'd pushed herself too hard. Jordan guided her back into the wheelchair and offered a small smile. "You did beautifully. We'll rest now." Michael knelt to steady Lily's blanket, his mind racing ahead to the board presentation. But the real test loomed, keeping promises to his daughter and to the investors who now held Lily's future and his company's reputation in their hands. As Jordan packed away the music box, its last notes echoing like a promise unfulfilled, Michael realized that the next step would demand everything he had: faith over fear, humility over hubris, and a willingness to let his little butterfly learn to fly, even if his own wings felt fragile. "Do you realize what you've unleashed?" Michael's voice trembled as he stared at the latest email from one of his biggest investors. Their words were blunt: pull the funding, or face a shareholder revolt. He sank into his leather chair, the butterfly pin Elena had given Lily still glinting on his desk, a silken reminder of what he stood to lose. Across town, Jordan Hayes was preparing Lily's evening session, unaware that tonight's progress might determine not just her future, but the fate of Michael's entire enterprise. The mansion's halls felt hollow now that the boardroom had spoken. Michael had thought success was measured in market cap, yet here he was confronted with a lesson in true value. Lily's laughter and tentative motor breakthroughs had joined forces with cold corporate logic, and if he didn't act carefully, both dreams would shatter. He paced each step, echoing off the marble wrestling with his conscience and the spreadsheet that flickered on his laptop. Meanwhile, Jordan knelt beside Lily's wheelchair in a small therapy room Michael had converted from a study. The soft glow of a Himalayan salt lamp bathed the space in calm. He cued a gentle piano track, one enriched with frequencies scientifically designed to stimulate proprioception. Lily's eyes widened in anticipation, her hands twitching with cautious hope. Jordan's voice was a soft anchor. Remember, the butterfly finds flight in stillness. Feel every note. Back in the study, Michael dialed his COO. "We need to present more data fast," he urged. "Arrange a pilot program at the local children's hospital. Showcase Lily's progress publicly." The COO hesitated. "That's weeks of work, Michael. The investor ultimatum expires in 48 hours. The deadline loomed like a storm cloud, yet he knew the only way forward was to double down on the very thing that made him vulnerable: Lily's journey. In the therapy room, Jordan guided Lily through a balance exercise, inching her torso forward in her chair, engaging core muscles long dormant. The movement was perilous. One wrong shift could tip her forward. Lily's face tightened with effort, but she trusted Jordan's steady hands. A bead of sweat traced down her temple. "You're doing it," Jordan whispered. "Trust yourself." At that moment, Lily's wheels lurched backward, almost toppling, but she regained her posture, beaming as if she'd conquered Everest. Jordan exhaled, pride and relief mingling in his gaze. But as he helped Lily back to neutral, their peaceful bubble burst, Michael stormed in, breath ragged. "We're losing everything," he said, voice raw. "I need you to run this at the charity gala tomorrow night. Public demonstration. Live engines don't wait." The ask was audacious. Expose Lily to a crowd of strangers before she was ready, risking her confidence and hard-won trust. Jordan's jaw clenched. He'd promised Elena he'd protect Lily from being a spectacle. Yet he also understood the stakes without public proof. No funding meant no program, no future for hundreds of other children. Jordan met Michael's gaze, the butterfly pin between them, a silent pact of transformation. "We'll do it," he said, voice steady. "But on our terms. We honor Lily's pace." Michael nodded, heart pounding. Pushing too fast could break his daughter, but slowing could break their mission. Outside the room, the mansion lights flickered as a storm rolled in thunder, distantly rumbling like the investor revolt knocking at their door. As father and therapist stood in tense alignment, both realized that tomorrow's gala would be the crucible in which Lily's wings either unfolded or were clipped forever. "You're about to walk onto a stage in front of every donor and camera crew in Miami. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Jordan Hayes' whispered voice, taut with concern, as he adjusted Lily's wheelchair platform under the gala's bright spotlights. The ballroom had been transformed into a makeshift therapy arena, rows of seats filled with philanthropists in tuxedos, luxury brand representatives scrolling on tablets, and a bank of TV cameras capturing every angle. At the center, Lily's wheelchair sat atop a raised platform, butterfly banners draped behind her like witnessing wings. The air hummed with anticipation and undercurrents of skepticism. Could this unorthodox therapy really justify millions in donations? Lily's small hand tightened around Jordan's palm. The gentle butterfly pin Elena had given her glinted like a promise against Lily's sash. In that moment, Lily inhaled the shimmering light eyes, flickering with equal parts excitement and fear. Jordan glanced at Michael Sterling standing beside the stage, an island of marble and steel confidence. Yet tonight he seemed as vulnerable as the daughter he was fighting for. Michael caught Jordan's eye and offered a trembling nod that spoke volumes. Protect her spirit, no matter what happens. The opening act was a keynote speech by a renowned pediatric surgeon extolling the virtues of cutting-edge technology, exoskeletons, and robotics that could one day give children like Lily the power to walk. Applause rippled through the audience. Lily watched silent, her world confined to the wheelchair's frame. Then the surgeon gestured toward the platform. Now we have a real-world case to demonstrate an innovative approach. Please welcome Dr. Jordan Hayes and his patient, Miss Lily Sterling. The room lights dimmed, and a spotlight zoomed in on Lily. Jordan guided Lily through the first exercise, subtle shoulder rolls and micro-lean movements synced to a gentle harp track techniques unheard of in traditional rehab. He narrated each movement. Notice how the music frequency at 440 Hz engages the vestibular system, promoting balance. Cameras swiveled, capturing Lily's determined brow. A hush enveloped the crowd. Some leaned forward in curiosity, others exchanged doubtful glances. Midway, an unexpected challenge, the sound system flickered, and the harp track sputtered. A murmur swept the room, technical glitch or sabotage. Jordan's heart jolted. This was more than nerves. Someone didn't want Lily to shine. He glanced at Michael, whose jaw tightened, disbelief flickering in his eyes. But Lily, bolstered by Jordan's steady presence, closed her eyes, briefly, breathed deeply, and tapped her fingers in perfect time, recreating the rhythm from memory. The backup tablet kicked in, the melody resumed, and Lily's movements flowed stronger, her confidence soaring. A ripple of applause swelled into a standing ovation. Jordan guided Lily through the final sequence, a series of micro-shifts that ended with her leaning forward and then back in one seamless motion. The crowd gasped. For the first time, the audience witnessed not a demonstration of technology, but the triumph of human spirit and connection. Jordan's voice cracked with emotion as he concluded, "True healing isn't about machinery. It's about faith, resilience, and the promise that every butterfly can learn to fly." From his seat, Michael exhaled, tears blurring his vision. He realized that this moment was bigger than investors or valuations. It was about giving Lily the wings she deserved and challenging a society that judged potential by sight alone. As the spotlight faded, Lily's chair sparkled under the gala lights, her triangle of courage, her father's newfound humility, and Jordan's unwavering faith forming an unbreakable bond. But in the shadows beyond the curtains, a figure in a tailored suit watched with cold calculation, phone in hand, ready to leak footage of the technical glitch as evidence of unreliable methods. The real battle for Lily's future was only just beginning. "I can't believe they tried to sabotage her," Michael Sterling murmured, voice barely audible over the hushed aftermath of the gala. The butterfly banners had been packed away, the cameras dismantled, yet the echo of Lily's triumph still shimmered in the dimmed ballroom. Jordan Hayes sat beside him, exhaustion and exhilaration etched into his calm expression. Between them lay the proof footage of Lily's flawless micro-movements, sights no robot could replicate, now safeguarded on encrypted drives. But outside these walls, whispers of the technical glitch had already begun to swirl, and one powerful skeptic had vowed to expose the incident as proof the therapy was unreliable. Michael pressed his palm to the small butterfly pin at Lily's sash. It felt warm, as though it carried the latent energy of every breakthrough Lily had achieved. He reflected on the journey, how his empire of code and capital had blinded him to the simplest truth, that potential isn't measured in dollars, but in the willingness to believe. Lily's laughter when the lights went out, and her unshakable composure when the melody faltered, had become the beating heart of this revolution in rehabilitation. Jordan, sensing Michael's turmoil, placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "They can twist a glitch," Jordan said softly, "but they can't rewrite the courage our little butterfly showed." He gestured toward the packed chairs, now empty, but still resonant with hope. "Tomorrow we release the unedited live stream. Let the world see Lily's strength the moment she chose faith over fear." A murmur of agreement passed between Michael and Carla Novak, who'd organized the gala under a cloud of uncertainty, and now prepared the press releases that could make or break their mission. Outside, the Miami night stretched dark and infinite streetlights glinting like distant stars. As they stepped into the cool air, Michael drew in a deep breath. The world was watching, investors waited on pins and needles, and society's old guard prepared its next ambush. But within him swelled a new certainty that true progress demanded risk, and that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs arise from the very moments we fear will defeat us. Lily appeared at the threshold, her small frame illuminated by lamplight. She gripped Jordan's hand and then reached out to her father. In her gaze, he saw not pity or patronizing pride, but a spark of shared resilience. He knelt and leveled his eyes with hers. "You were amazing," he whispered, voice thick. She nodded solemnly, the butterfly pin catching the light one last time. As they walked toward the valet, the chatter of evening traffic greeted them, cars honking in celebration, perhaps, or just carrying on with lives unaware of the storm of change that had erupted inside a single ballroom. Michael wondered which it was, a world ready to embrace Lily's story, or a world waiting to see her wings clipped by cynicism. Jordan opened the car door for Lily, and Michael placed his hand on the car roof, the butterfly emblem burning bright in his mind. He realized that their fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. The next chapter would test their resolve beyond any gala or boardroom. And as they drove off into the night, the city lights blurred into a river of possibility and peril flowing toward tomorrow's unknown horizon. What would they face, first acclaim backlash, or something no one had even anticipated?